We've seen this image once before, and today we'll begin from a moment depicted here and move through the week following, which is today a significant part of the Christian liturgical calendar. Liturgy is something like a script for ritual, and some Christian churches are more liturgical or more scripted than are others. The Catholics are a great representation of the sort of high liturgical, but there are others, Lutherans, Episcopals. The events of the Holy Week are ritualized more by the liturgical branches of Christianity, and we'll spend our last lecture introducing those different branches. But here we have the entry into Jerusalem, and I want to show you a couple movie clips that treat Jesus' first moments in Jerusalem pretty well. The first is from Jesus Christ Superstar, a 1971 musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice. This is the first Palm Sunday.
To be quiet, we anticipate a riot. This common crowd is much too loud. Tell the mob, sing your song, that they are fools and they are wrong. They are a curse. They should disperse.
So that's a cool film, and much like the next one, isn't approved of by many Christians. It is a popularized representation. I recommend it to you. After Jesus has entered Jerusalem, he goes to the temple, where he finds that money changers have set up booths to buy Roman coins from the faithful in exchange for Jewish shekels. This clip comes from the 1988 Scorsese film, The Last Temptation of Christ, based on a novel by Kazantzakis, and portrays clearly the indignation, even the rage, that Jesus is told to have expressed during his visit to the temple.
Money changes? It's for the temple tax for the feast.
I know. How's the exchange today?
Fair. At this stall, it's always fair.
Making a good profit?
Fair.
So he isn't always smiling, and again, that's a film that's you've got Willem Dafoe in the lead role as Jesus, and it's not a film that follows strictly the doctrinal claims of Christianity, but it is, that scene especially, one that really speaks well to the kind of rage that we don't often turn to, that we don't often think about. So again, not always smiling, but the story then turns to an event that's come to be known as the Last Supper, which may or may not have been a Passover Seder, where the 12 apostles dined together with Jesus for the last time. Da Vinci classically portrays this meal, and his painting was restored in 1999, looks a lot better. Most of us are familiar with this image, but what you might not know is that it was painted on the wall of a refectory or dining hall. So monks of the late 15th century looked at this image while they were eating, which, it was not a museum piece. It was a functional piece of art. And it's an image that's been reimagined countless times. Here are a few. Warhol spent much of the, Andy Warhol, American artist of the 20th century, spent much of the 80s working with this theme. So here's one version of it. And here's another. He did repetitions on a theme is what he did. And then Dali, another 20th century artist, reimagined it in much more ethereal terms. You can see here. So there is no scripted vision of exactly this. This might remind us of the cosmic Christ that we talked briefly about. That was Dali's image. And here in Santa Cruz, if you like, you can visit this labor of love, a life-size wax Last Supper, which I did have the pleasure of visiting, and I do recommend to you. Now, at this supper, Jesus gives to his apostles what he calls a new law, one of selfless service, a law to make this law concrete in the minds of his followers. He washes their feet. Peter in this image is the one whose feet is being washed, and he's shocked. And in the gospel narrative, it comes through. He's shocked. He's aghast, thinking himself to be undeserving of this kind of service from the Son of God. The point, says Jesus, is that nobody is above serving their fellows, and this is the new divine model, that we should all do this, and nobody gets to be sort of above it or better. Now, in a much editorialized moment, Pope Francis took up this call when on Maundy Thursday, Maundy is the word that's come to be known as this Thursday. It's Maundy Thursday, and this comes from the Latin mandatum, from the gospel claim mandatum est, or it is given, as in a new law is given by me. Now, Pope Francis visits the Don Noki Center for People with Disabilities on Maundy Thursday and washes the feet of the patients there, two of whom were Muslim. So lots of folks had a problem with that. You can read up on it. It's a pretty richly editorialized moment. So after the dinner, on which the Christian Eucharistic feast or communion is based, after the washing of the feet and the giving of a new law, Jesus retreats with 3 of his friends to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray. We've seen this image of Jesus in the garden in such duress that he sweats blood and asks God the Father that this cup be taken from his lips. Ultimately, he accedes to the will of the Lord and accepts his divine mission, which is, according to tradition, to be sacrificed so that all sins may be forgiven. Now, his friends, who go with him to the garden and who are supposed to be on the lookout, fall asleep. And this is where we get that saying, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Most of you have probably heard that. That comes from Matthew 26. And Jesus is betrayed following this, and sort of because of this, he wasn't guarded. He's betrayed by a kiss from the apostle Judas, who turns him over to the Roman guard. Now, Judas isn't the only flawed apostle. Peter, whom Matthew tells us is the rock upon which Jesus' church will be built, making him, for Catholics, the first pope. Peter denies that he knows Jesus 3 times before the morning while Jesus is being questioned and beaten. And they were friends. He was dedicated, and this is another sense of flawed humanity. The Jewish recognition that humanity is flawed, and so are our human heroes, is carried through here. Now, Jesus is then questioned by Pontius Pilate, who's a prefect in the, many of you have heard this name, Pontius Pilate, or Pilate, is a prefect of the Roman province of Judea, who finds no fault in Jesus great enough to warrant execution. He says, I find no fault in him. Finding that Jesus is a Galilean, Pilate sends him to Herod Antipas, saying, it's not for me to decide. Herod Antipas is the tetrarch of Galilee, and so it's under his rule that Jesus is to be judged. Herod tries to get Jesus to show him a miracle. Jesus refuses. There's a great scene, again, in Jesus Christ Superstar that sort of brings this to life in contemporary ways. I recommend it to you. Jesus refuses. Herod mocks him and sends him back to Pilate. Pilate, still disinclined, makes a point of washing his hands of the whole business, accepting no responsibility for the crucifixion. And again, to draw your attention back to that Scorsese film, The Last Temptation of Christ, there, Pilate is played by David Bowie, so you might take a look at that. You can see all of these clips on YouTube for the most part, but I recommend the whole film to you. But again, he washes his hands of it. He did give in to the request of the crowd that Jesus be crucified, though, and it was Pilate who, at the crucifixion, ordered that a sign be hung from the cross reading, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. And this is where we get that, if you've ever seen it, that INRI, this is Jesus, Nazareth, Rex, or King of the Jews. Again, there's no J in the Latin, so that's where we get that sign. He hangs it above his head to make clear the supposed crime for which he was being executed. Here we have a picture of the crucifixion. So who killed Jesus? There's just no getting around the claim that the gospel narratives border on the anti-Semitic. Political corruption and confusion aside, it was the Jews, led and egged on by the Sanhedrin, who shout to Pilate in reference to Jesus, crucify him, crucify him. And this shows up in each of the Gospels. It's nothing but politically correct pretense that works to whitewash that. But the gospel writers were working to describe a new religion and to set themselves against the Jews who did not believe, who did not accept Jesus as this Messiah figure, and many of them didn't. But this isn't anti-Semitism as we now think of it. It's an internecine battle, a fight within the family. Remember that Christianity was born of a Jewish mother, and so, you know, the way we think of anti-Semitism now doesn't make sense in terms of the Gospels, but it's a misreading of the Gospels that suggests that somehow they are not unfriendly to the Jews. More than condemning the Jews today, which really doesn't make sense, this narrative calls on the faithful Christians to consider how easy it is for us as humans to deny, betray, and condemn the innocent. A great expression of this happens every liturgical year in the Catholic Palm Sunday Mass, when the parishioners are given the responsory line, called upon to speak these lines from the pews. And there's something really disorienting and mind-bending and clearly healthy in terms of self-reflection about hearing a church full of Christians call out in unison, crucify him, crucify him. It's self-awareness that we're looking for here, not reasons to condemn the other. At any rate, condemned he is and crucified in the narrative. This Masaccio painting has its own place in art history, is seen as initiating the kind of painterly perspective that can approximate a 3D vision. But artists didn't stop imagining the scene in the 15th century into the full 3D. If you'd like to see a larger-than-life recreation of all the stations of the cross, the scenes leading up to the crucifixion, you can visit Groom, Texas, where a park is dedicated to these statues. Definitely PG-13, but these statues represent clearly the scenes at the heart of Christian narrative, the moments that Christians are called upon to face. Now, back to Auckland. Remember Auckland, New Zealand? Not all presentations of the crucifixion are inclined toward realism. Again, St. Matthew's in the City works from humor in an effort to speak directly to contemporary, liberally minded parishioners. Unsurprisingly, not all Christians approve of this sort of levity, and it again has been much editorialized. Now, after the death of Jesus on the cross, his body is removed, his mother mourns. This is a classic Caravaggio of his body being removed. And this is, most of you have seen this Michelangelo, the Pietà, in which his mother is seen to mourn. And tradition has it he's resurrected on Sunday. The crucifixion happens on a Friday, known as Good Friday, within the Christian tradition. And on the Sunday following, he is said within the tradition to have been resurrected. In America, this holiday is known as Easter. We know this as Easter Sunday, right? Most of the world's population knows this Christian holiday as Pasch, or some other variation on Passover, understanding Jesus as the Paschal Lamb. And remember what that, in the Jewish tradition, we looked at that sense of the Paschal Lamb in terms of Passover. In the States, we call it Easter. Now, the name Easter is taken from the pagan goddess Ostara, or Ostra, it's a different version of the same name, goddess of fertility, arriving in the spring and flanked always by eggs and rabbits and flowers, all symbols of this fertility and new birth. And I mentioned this so that we know where the name comes from, but also to paint or to point briefly to the Christian habit of overlaying liturgical holidays upon the holidays of those whom they sought to convert. It's proven to be a very effective technique, and we can see this throughout most of the Christian liturgical calendar. This is a kind of popularized recognition of this, and one that seeks to, in a pluralistic world, keep those pagan roots within a holiday that's ostensibly Christian, but again named after a pagan goddess. So next time we'll talk about the development of the early church up to the point of the Great Schism between the East and West.